So there's Asher needling on the Taiyang Jinjing, or the sinew channel of the Taiyang. Has nothing to do with the shoe points. And as a general rule, I want to be needling on the vertebra. Okay? Now, the easiest way to find the vertebra, remember the skeleton dips here so that you find the vertebra and then you're like, oh, is it there? And you needle and you're scared and am I in between the lungs? And you have this whole conversation in your head because here the muscle has stuck up and the vertebra has gone this way. So there's much more distance than you think. Between the rib goes in and the muscle's on top, this is the tenderloin, right? This is the filet mignon of the human. So all of a sudden you have a sausage that you have to get through. Whereas here, the outer rim outer Taiyang is where the rib is at its highest to the ceiling. So it comes up, dips, and connects. So the best way when you're needling these ribs at first is to find it way out here and to come up the rib and see, okay, there's my rib, and I want to get to know the trajectory. Everyone's ribs are different, but they're definitely angled. So the same rib, I'm way down here, okay, this vertebra, and as I come up, I'm way up here. And why that's important is if I start locating ribs out here and I go, where's the rib? And I come in here, I'm going to get lost. So just remember, as you get to the thicker part that's harder to find, David's easy to find, I just want to remember what was my angle and come up. The ribs aren't going to come up and then make like a weird dip and take a curve or anything else like that. And if it did, you would see scoliosis and intense pain and they would have come in with like crutches or a walker. So, trust physics. Know what's down there. So I'm going to find that line. And on David, I can always push hard enough, but all I have to do is find that outer Taiyang line. Now, once I've found a Taiyang line here, I can go into the huatua of the ribs, not the huatua of the spine, which is in between, and then come up. And there's my next one. And then down, and then my next one. And then I can just say, okay, I can extrapolate that this rib had this line. So coming here, if I found the rib here, I don't want to go horizontal. I'm going to end up in empty space. I want to account for that curve in the rib, and that puts me there. On the Davids of the world who are thin, I can always find it along the spine and work backwards. But for a lot of our patients, the standard American, that it's not possible. So we really want to be clear where ribs are here, see how they're built, and then start to extrapolate. At that point, when I needle, I'm definitely needling onto the bone as much as I can. And I want to be aware that that outer and inner Taiyang is one thing for me with multiple threads. I'm not concerned about is it outer or it's inner. Where am I finding it inside and outside? When I'm doing shoe points and I'm teaching, I'm going to say be on top of the rib and then ride it slowly, knowing that you can't give them pneumothorax because you're above the rib. And the sentence I use is I would rather do the right technique in the wrong location than the wrong technique at the right location, because doing nothing is nothing, right? But the truth is that once I'm comfortable and I know what's going on, I can 100% be in a true shoe point in between the ribs to communicate. The third thing to understand is that there are, when there is deficiency, when the organ is weak, then I will need to get in and just wake up the chi. And I'm trying to say, hey, and the body goes, what is that? And it sends like an echo to the organ. And the organ goes, whoa, I got to actually do something, okay? If the organ is angry, it's going to be very reactive on the surface. And the truth is, whether you are shoe in between or on top, changing anything up here is going to cause, and Chinese medicine is the language of metaphor, simile, and analogy. And so on one, we're trying to, with our stick, reach in and poke something to wake it up. And so that's deficiency showing up with deficiency, okay? And then the other is it's engorged and I'm trying to poke it so it pukes. All right? You know puking? Okay, good. Um, so so at that point, it doesn't have to be on it. And a lot of times I don't want to be too much on it because it's really pushed up. I want to really create ashers, jumps, fasciculations. They're going to go ripple in and cause the organ to go and expel what's in there. Okay? So at that point, where I am on a rib, not a rib, is less important. So, and then there's the circumstance where an Asher is affecting the organ itself. So, a physical muscle injury causing a problem to an internal organ. Asher work, internal Asher work on the bone to settle out the muscles. Internal work, communicate to wake it up, or communicate to get it puke. We got to come up with a better way to get it to expel the pernicious. I don't know. You know what I'm saying. And then finally, when an Asher is causing an internal illness. So the question is, I don't know if the earphone is going to pick it up, is if we're doing the internal and we're trying to wake it up, what is the sensation the patient will feel? And that's often hard to know because the more deficient, if they're extremely deficient, they will feel a lot. Okay? When they're mostly deficient, like they're very deficient but not extreme deficient, it may not do anything. And yet we have to hope that they got the call, and as they move, the chi decides to wake up. But at a certain point, if you give a treatment like that and nothing is happening, that's when moxa or other things are going to be important, or deep chi vibrating. Because if they're deficient to the point that the shoe points are also deficient, and in there's nothing to really work with the needle, so technique becomes critical, not the needle. And it may be so weak that the stimulating with a sharp object isn't going to do it. It doesn't wake it up and it doesn't make it puke. We need a different technique. And that would be moxa in the old days, or deep chi, or liniment, or herbs, etc., until there's enough chi that we can get that. But it is important to know that if you can't reach the chi, or the chi is too weak to reach where you're trying to get to, then the needles are a waste of time, right? Remember, it's just a tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to find rib, and I'm going to start up here, and I want to find, he's so thick where most people are, wow. So there's a nice rib, and I want to find that rib over. And it's important here, and then I go slow. There's rib. So I extrapolate my line, and there's rib. I'm just on the side of that swelling. Okay? In between the two, you can see how shallow bone, how thick that is. So you can see we really want to understand that the muscle fills in the needle bone. Now over here, no bone. Here, bone. You think, uh-oh, where'd the bone go? Where'd the bone go? Where'd the ball go? Where'd the ball go? Whoa. I'm being a little inconsiderate. I'm just looking for bone, and we're watching all these fasciculations happen. And remember that as things cross the bone, it's like the sinews over a guitar fret. That's where the problems tend to be, right? Truly, they tend to be on either just where it hits or where it leaves. But the general idea is if we loosen that. So that's rib location. Now we're going to needle for Asher sports injury type thing. So I palpated, I get nervous. Gosh, where's that rib? I thought I had rib, but then it went through it. Rib. So with my compression of fingers, you can see how far in that needle is. I know that if I keep the compression over here, the needle needs to be shallower over here and shallower here. This is its deepest spot. But we can see how swollen he is over there on his outer Taiyang. That gives me confidence to needle. And again, I mean, if the person's got labored breathing, COPD, emphysema, a chronic illness, then, we aren't doing it this way. And so that's good old-fashioned Asher needling on the back, nice and safe, huge jumps. You could see he really should have some work here and there, but for the sake of time. Now on this side, what I'm going to do is, and I'm not a huge counter, like for me, whether I'm a Jun or Xin, Fei or Fengmen is less important as long as I realize I want to be in this area. And then is it puffy or is it hard or is it divoted or what am I looking for? But everything is going to be a little jumpy on David, but here I am, just like I talk about needling stomach 36, you can needle next to the muscle or through the muscle. The truth is the shoe points are in between the ribs, the Ashers are on top of the ribs, but you should be able to needle both either way. I'm not going to teach that in a seminar because there's a lot of new people. But I'm in, and instead of sparrow pecking gently and looking, I'm going to just generally feel the texture change. And then once I do, I'm going to relax myself and drop in and spread. And I just picture a dolphin or Aquaman sending out those sonar waves into the chest. David, how heavy would you say that is? It's light, but it's solid. So different. And I have two fingers here, just the structure. Doesn't matter. Think of the needle as the attention getter and the worker is the other hand. And that includes my fingers on my left hand, my needling hand. I'm going to be, instead of thrusting the needle in, my weight slides along the needle handle. I'll turn this way for the camera. So I could thrust needle in, or I could lean and keep the leaning continuous as the weight goes down the handle without the needle really inserting. And then I can lift. But again, the needle doesn't really travel out of the skin or the path I've made. And it's a very comforting needle. Yes, David? Yeah. He's in a nice, quiet, deep place there. Oftentimes, if I'm doing internal medicine, particularly if it's deficient, I'm not looking to create purging from into the organ. I will slip in all the needles I'm going to do first. Then I'll go back and work them. Because I don't want David to be in this deep place he's in, and then I do a crappy insertion and he feels the poke, right? But I can see here very easily, and I know that this area is going to be a communication problem because I can see that's dipped in. So no matter what structurally is affecting the organs, and again, I'm looking for that texture change, which is very fast here. And then the needle tip, once it's in the texture, doesn't continue to move forward through him. Just everything gets pushed in, but doesn't actually move where it is. Did I say that well? David could use this kind of needling, right? It's like, it just softens everything. So we have Asher, vertebra, finding bones, being smart. We have deficiency. Then we have the stimulate to the other version of riding the point, the chi, right? And we will go here. And so there's rib. I could be on the rib and do it. I could be on the rib and do it. or I could be in between. My flu show is much more of like a concentrating everything. I do have some thrusting. It's not very deep because I happen to be really in between the ribs. My pull up is quite strong. You can see how much more blanched my fingers are when you rewatch the video. Ooh, there we go. Did you feel that, David? It was kind of like this bloop. But I can't let the needle go deep, yeah? And that's in between. And then shoe point work to expel on the rib. So there's the rib. That's sparrow pecking for muscle. Now, but it's not jumping. And that's the difference, yeah? Look at how much more everything is. And then always being good about letting that up. Once it's purged, you want to give it space to be like, Okay? So 3 different ways of needling. Orthopedic, deficiency, excess deficiency, or excess could be either way. And then the one thing is, of course, orthopedic work to fix an organ that's being held by muscles, which is this, but you just need to know your better points. That's all.